To this Planning Committee meeting of the 6th of August 2024. How time flies. I'm Councillor Phil Murphy. I'm Chair of the committee. Dale?
Good afternoon. My name's Dale Rook and I'm the Vice Chair of the Planning Committee. Thank you.
Craig?
Craig O'Connor, Head of Placemaking.
Amy Longford, Development Management Area Manager.
Andrew Jones, Development Management Area Manager.
Paige Mosley, Solicitor to Planning Committee.
Richard Williams, Democratic Services.
Thank you, everybody. Can I remind everybody online to use the chat function, please? Don't just put your hand up, I might not see you. And to keep your cameras on at all times so that we can make sure that you've been following the conversation, otherwise we won't be able to allow you to vote. We'll go to the agenda now then. Do we have any apologies for absence, Paige?
Just one apology, Chair, from Councillor Howells.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Declarations of interest, anybody? No? Okay. We'll go to the agenda now then, and we've got one application before us today. It's application DM 2022. Oh, the minutes, yeah, sorry, I skipped them. I keep doing that, don't I? Everybody happy with the minutes of the previous meeting? Sue? John? Yeah, John. 2022-01815, the demolition of the original shop building and remodelling of the retained bed and breakfast accommodation, all in Llandogo. This is being presented by Amy.
Thank you very much, Chair. Before we start, I just want to apologise for an error in the report, which refers to Llandogo as a minor village. It is, in fact, in policy terms, a main village, and paragraph 6.8.1, 6.8.4 refer to the correct policy. So the slide in front of you shows the location and an aerial view of the site and the new house, as you can see, Y Home Bungalow to the rear. The red line shows the extent of the site in question and the principal building in the middle of the site. The next slide shows the proposed site layout. The central property, plot number 3, remains as an existing building but refurbished, and with 2 new build semi-detached properties either side and the relocation of the shop to the northeastern corner of the site. Access for each property is from a separate and new entrance off the main road. Highways officers have considered the proposals and have no objections to the proposed access or parking arrangements. EV charging points have been provided for each house and for the commercial unit. The application has been considered by our ecology colleagues and by Natural Resources Wales and has been subject to a thorough habitat regulations assessment due to the proximity to the SAC and a known bat roost. There are no objections from ecology. The application also includes an ecological net benefit. There have been objections from our colleagues in SUDS in relation to surface water drainage. The proposals will be subject to a full application for SUDS, where surface water will be thoroughly assessed and managed separately. This application identifies a suitable drainage destination within the ownership of the applicant that is considered to be acceptable with SUDS. Therefore, it is considered there is sufficient information on which to make a planning decision. The plan also shows the proposed landscaping, noting the hedge line to the rear and the tree and shrub planting in front of the site between the footpaths. Established trees are to be retained. The next slide shows the street view of the proposed dwelling, noting cream render, slate roofs with contrasting timber cladding to the retail premises. There have been objections from the AONB and from the landscape officer. With regards to the AONB, there were concerns over the potential urbanising feel of the proposals and their overdevelopment of the site. The proposed development accords with the privacy standards where applicable and provides sufficient parking and amenity spaces for all of the buildings. In addition, the additional landscaping is provided to the front entrance where the access arrangements will be in place. These landscaping concerns were also raised by the landscape officer. But there is a condition applied in the officer's report to secure details of all hard and soft landscaping, notwithstanding the approved plans in front of you. So the next slide shows the floor plans of the proposed dwellings, two-bed semi-detached properties and an existing 4-bed dwelling. The next slide shows in more detail the floor plans and the elevations for units 1 and 2, and these are again replicated for plots 4 and 5. The next, plot 3, which is, as said, already existing, is proposed to renovate the building and upgrade it to match the appearance of the new build. The next slide then shows the floor plans of the retail premises with a 1-bed manager's flat to the upper floor. There have been concerns in relation to the provision of affordable housing and the provision of homes for people in the locality. The policy states that infill development in main villages should provide a 35% contribution of affordable homes on site. However, the viability assessment has been submitted, which states that the on-site provision would render the scheme unviable. This has been independently reviewed by our external consultants, who have confirmed that on-site provision would not be achievable. However, an off-site provision in the form of a financial contribution of nearly £20,000 has been secured through 106. Whilst this is not ideal, the scheme does have other community benefits in the form of a purpose-built local shop and manager's flat, providing accommodation and employment and delivering a much-needed local service. The next slide shows a section through the site with the new house outside of the application site to the left and the road and the existing buildings to the right. The green shading shows the extent of the existing building, which is in part retained. The section shows the regrading of the site at the front and the rear to accommodate flat areas for parking to the front and gardens to the rear. The next slide shows a cross-section through the middle of the site, the outline of the buildings as if they were facing the road. This shows the reduction in ground levels around the retail premises to create a level access to the shop. The next slide shows the boundary treatments. All closed boarded fences have been contained to enclosed rear gardens and railings and walls used for visible boundary divisions. And the next slide shows pictures of the front of the site, taken from the main road, showing the shop prior to and post closure. And then the last photograph there is the site as we saw it yesterday. Members visited the site yesterday and a question was raised in relation to phasing as whether the shop could be constructed prior to the houses to ensure that there is a provision of a community facility or the shop on site. This was discussed, and it is considered that we potentially could add a condition that requires the shop to be constructed or the building to be constructed prior to occupation of the new semi-detached properties, specifically property 1, 2, 4 and 5. This could be added then to the officer's report. In conclusion, the application proposed the redevelopment of the site to provide two-bed homes and a new purpose-built village shop. The application has been carefully considered and has sought to address all of the concerns. The proposals are considered to be policy compliant and have secured a financial contribution of £20,000 or just shy of £20,000 towards affordable housing elsewhere in the county, whilst facilitating the delivery of a much-needed local store. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the officer's report and the additional condition in relation to occupation of the housing and phasing of the retail premises. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And Councillor Webb, it's in your ward. Do you want to come in as local member? Or?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, and thank you, Amy, for this excellent report on the future development of brown stores. I often hear in the village, oh, I do miss brown stores. Well, I hope with the approval of this application that once again we will have this much needed facility. This application has taken a long time to come to this committee, but but with an application like this, there are always unknown gremlins popping up. And so thank you, Amy, for dealing with this and all the other officers involved. The report has covered every aspect, as your members will see when they've read it, relating to this application and the reasons for this. It's disappointing regarding the affordable housing element, but in the end, this site must be attractive for development. We do not want a vacant site any longer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. And I note that the Wye Valley Community Council has resolved that the application be approved, but we have Councillor Lynn Parker who's come along to address us today. There was some late correspondence. Can I confirm that everybody's seen the late correspondence on this? Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the courtesy you and your colleagues extended to me at the site visit yesterday. It was really helpful to meet all of you and to hear the comments. It was also good to see so many of the committee were able to come and see the site for themselves. Thank you for the time and trouble taken. Having attended the site visit, there is not a lot of need for me to labour the points that I would like to make. But firstly, can I just say I really welcome the well-written and thorough officer report. The Community Council has consistently supported this application and recommended approval because it is consistent with local policies and addresses identified local needs. The village needs a shop. We have a high proportion of older people who miss the social contact and convenience of a small shop. Many of the newer residents bought houses here in the belief that there was a local shop or that it would be shortly reopened and following refurbishment. Some are even exploring the idea of a pop-up shop, so far unsuccessfully trying to identify possible locations. Perhaps if approved, the application could be conditioned for early completion of the shop. The village also needs affordable housing. Recent local sales have indicated that the suggested market value in the report with the application is consistent with the recent prices achieved for similar houses. So, I mean, it would be very good if they could be occupied by local people, but I understand that's out with the planning committee's remit. The application site is rapidly becoming an eyesore, as you've seen. It's in a prominent position in the conservation area, and this application, I think, has the potential to remedy that. So I hope that the committee is now able to decide this application in accordance with the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Parker. We've got nobody else registered to speak, so I'll open it up to members. Anybody got any points that they wish to make? Yeah, okay. Councillor Bond.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much for the presentation and everything. It seems like a really good idea, and it is an eyesore, as you were saying, and it was a brilliant resource or supply for people to be able to go to that shop. Looking online at comments that have been made very much around parking and walking to children to school and visibility. Has there been any suggestion or review of the impact of this change will have on people parking on roads, and also it was mentioned that there aren't enough spaces for people to park for the shop, and therefore they'll be parked on the roads. Is this being taken into consideration, please? Thank you.
Amy, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, thank you for that. All good questions there. So, yes, the parking provision on site has been assessed by the highways officers and it is fully compliant. There are 2 spaces per property, 2-bed property, and 3 for the 4-bed property, which is, again, policy compliant. 3 for the shop and an additional disabled parking space, and that's worked out on the size of the retail premises, so it is in line with the parking standards that we have. In relation to the footpath, yes, that's been raised quite a few times over the accessibility to the shop. The footpath at the moment is quite narrow across the front of the site and isn't very well maintained. There is going to be provision of a full 2 metre wide footpath now from the corner of the site where it joins the side road right the way across the frontage, providing much better access and a safer walking environment from the main town towards the shop, which again, highways officers are considered to be completely acceptable and up to standard.
Can I come back in there? So I guess there's, because it's not extensively right across, because there's parking, you know, going into parking for the properties, there'd be less likely, it'd be less likely for people to be parking on the path because it's not an extensive piece of path, is it?
Yes, that's correct. Where you've got a completely solid frontage at the moment and an earth bund that kind of comes in front of the shop and the existing house, you will have a lower, flatter, level access throughout the site, which is punctuated by the 2 accesses for Unit 3 and 4 and 5. But again, that footpath will be demarked and will be 2 metres for the full extent.
Okay, Councillor Prin.
Thank you for bringing this report today, and it's really good to see this development going forward, because having spoken to local residents, I know this amenity is much needed. The shop has been dearly missed by a lot of the residents in the area. And obviously it's a rite of passage for children to be able to nip to their local school, or local shop, to pick up eggs and flour and whatnot, and they're really missing on that. I just had one concern really, and that was with the car park, with the lack of, obviously we're going to improve accessibility by widening the pavement to the front of the shop, but that there's no pedestrian access to the shop itself from the pavement, and that does make me feel a bit uncomfortable. When I've tried to find guidance online about small car parks, the only thing I could find, the guidance was, it said, to enhance safety, pedestrians and vehicles should be segregated. Residents arriving on foot should not have to cross a car park of reversing cars and delivery vehicles, and drivers leaving parked vehicles should not have to cross potentially dangerous work areas of traffic routes. Parking areas should be designed to minimise the need for complex manoeuvres and reversing. Pedestrian safety in car parks is crucial due to the high potential for accidents. Unlike roads, car parks are spaces where drivers have reduced visibility, increasing the risk of collisions. So I just wanted to check what the guidance was in this instance, and wondered if we had a legal duty to identify and mitigate risks in such a confined space where there are vehicles and no pedestrian demarcations at all. But thank you.
Amy?
Sorry, yeah. I thought you said Faye then. Yeah, that's a good point. It was something we discussed on site and had a look at the space as well. Just looking at the highways comments, they've used the manual for streets in terms of their standards for parking areas and access. I think it is a valid issue to raise. However, I think that the amount of cars coming in and out of that shop and that access is going to be relatively limited. There's a significant visibility splay, plenty of opportunity to see pedestrians and cars, and I think it would be very difficult to be able to create a specific footpath from the main access off the street into the site, to the shop, to the front door. We need to maintain that open area for a swept path for deliveries to be able to fully turn inside the site and exit and enter in a forward gear, and the same for parking. It is very tight, but I think on reflection, the shared surface, the amount of visibility and the number of car movements shouldn't cause too much of a conflict in that respect.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Can I come back?
Yeah.
Is that okay? I just wondered what we do if that is, because obviously these are reversing cars going towards pedestrians, which include vulnerable users. As we've illustrated, there are a lot of elderly residents here and children in this village. If there is an issue, what would be the mitigation? What would we do? Because I just can't understand why there's nothing we can do at this point when we can see potentially a problem, and it would be easier to kind of address it now than if there is an issue later on.
Yeah, no, again, a good question. I think the question is that a particular problem? It does meet the highway standards, so it is difficult for us to go back and request for an additional footpath to be included. As I say, there is limited space, so we would have to make compromises in terms of the landscaping provision. But because we need to make sure that the car has enough space to manoeuvre. I think if there were problems, our highways colleagues would have to identify those and justify those as particular problems. It's difficult really to say what you could do in terms of trying to mitigate that post-event. I suppose the application before us is considered to be compliant and there are no objections from highways. Personally, I would suspect that there'll be very low volumes there anyway. I can't see it as a busy shop from a vehicle point of view, but that's just a personal opinion. Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Amy, for today's report and for the site visit yesterday, which was very illuminating. It's always good to do the site visits because you really get to understand some of the difficulties and possibilities, actually. Personally, I think it would be great to see some two-bedroom homes being built. You know, there are increasing needs for people to downsize, and there are plenty of people who don't fit the affordable housing criteria who are looking for their first homes. So I think it's excellent that this small development is for small two-bedroom houses. My question actually relates to the charge points. And first of all, are the charge points actually wired to each individual property? I'm just checking that they're not public points, because I know each property has its own PV panels, so there's clear link between the two. And is the charge point in the shop car park intended to be a fast charge public point?
The EV charging for the residential properties 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 is specific for 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, so they won't be public. The 2 EV charging points for the shop, one is for the manager's flat and the other one will be a public charging point. Whether that's a fast charge or not, I don't know. I think it goes slightly beyond our remit to specify whether it should be a fast charge or not. There is provision. And in terms of the policy position on it, there is no requirement for us to ensure that they provide EV charging. So the applicant here has gone over and above what is required of them in terms of EV charging across the whole site. So I think we're in a fortunate position.
Thank you, and I think he's done the right thing. Well done.
Councillor Powell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Looking at the front of the place, obviously at the back they've got their own individual gardens. In front of the houses, is that just going to be an open space? So that the car, obviously for the cars to go across. Is there a pedestrian entrance at the far end where people could walk up across there rather than get mixed up with the vehicles actually going in and out?
Do you mean for the shop? Access for the shop, yeah. So in front of each of the properties, there's an area of kind of limited planting, and the kind of turning area is a porous surface, hard surface. Again, in front of the shop, the intention is that people would use the footpath all the way across the front and then access into the shop, and that existed close to the existing access where it is now.
Thank you.
Councillor Webb.
Thank you. Can I just say thank you also to those people that took the time yesterday evening to come out to look at the site. It was really appreciated, thank you. And also for the community councillor coming today, and that's also appreciated. We so often don't get representation from the community council, and I feel that it's really, we should acknowledge this. Thank you. And can I also recommend approval of this application, please, Chair?
Thank you for that. I've got nobody else on my list at the moment, but you can bet your life somebody's going to just before I close the list. No? Oh, well done.
Will we be approval with the condition of building the shop first?
I'll bring that. So we've got Councillor Webb's proposal that we and Councillor Powell, can I make it clear then, please, that that any vote for approval, which is recommended, will also include the additional condition? Yeah. Amy, read out the condition. Yeah, Amy, can you just read the condition, please?
So the suggested draft condition is for no occupation of units 1, 2, 4 and 5 shall not be occupied until the retail premises has been constructed and completed. And the reason would be to safeguard the provision of the community facility in line with policy CRF1.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Everybody clear? Okay, Richard, can we have the voting function up then, please?
Apologies, Chair. We have a technical issue. I'm unable to put that into the chat. It's just not letting me do it. Would you like me to call the name?
Do you want to do a roll call?
Yeah, I could do that if you're happy with that, Chair. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. Everybody happy with a roll call? Yeah. Online? Thank you. Richard?
Okay. Thank you, members. First name I have is Councillor Bond. How are you voting?
Thank you. For approval.
Councillor Bromfield?
For approval, please.
Councillor Bryn?
For approval, please.
Councillor Butler?
For approval.
Councillor Birch?
For approval.
Councillor Crook?
For approval.
Councillor Eason?
For approval.
Councillor Garrett?
For approval.
Councillor McConnell?
For approval.
Councillor McKenna?
Approve.
Councillor Murphy?
Approve.
Councillor Powell?
For approval.
Councillor Riley?
Approve.
Councillor Rook?
Approve.
And Councillor Webb?
Approve.
That's the vote, Chair. It looks like it's unanimous.
It looks pretty unanimous to me. Thank you very much, everybody. We can now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is an appeal decision. And Andrew.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll just get the presentation up on screen. Bear with me a moment. So just one appeal to report for your information. So this is at the Haven, Gypsy Crescent, Lynfoyce, so it's within the development boundary, and permission was sought to convert the outbuilding at the back of the dwelling. It's currently used as just incidental domestic use into a holiday let, which is a C6 use class. So we refused planning permission on 3 grounds, principally the impact on surrounding third-party residential amenity due to increased activity and potential for disturbance, as well as concerns with pedestrian safety, citing reasons of cars overspilling onto the pavement, and finally our reason for refusal was lack of ecological enhancement. So the inspector did dismiss the appeal, so that's the building there, but it was only on the basis of third-party residential amenity. They've cited the size of the building and concern for outdoor use having a harmful impact on neighbours. So ultimately that one was dismissed. So it wasn't a retrospective, it was a proposed use, so sort of no further action there. But it's just for your information. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. We've now got a short presentation by Amy. Sorry?
Go off.
No, yeah. We have to come off the meeting, won't we? Thank you, Anne. We'll wrap up the meeting now, so we can switch off, Richard.